Secret friends, unite!
Welcome to the Secret Friends Unite podcast, episode 514. This is your guide to the geek side. I am Todd Oxtra, living the dream in Minnesota. Charlie Carden, living the dream
Touchdown!
of Beer City.
Beer City, USA on my birthday. I'm not going to tell you the day. Not going to give you my address because I know people are always trying to steal my identity. But no, I'm staring over the abyss of age 50. I turned 49 today. I'm further away from it than Todd, who turns 50 in 2 months. Two months, Todd, almost 2 months. No, 6 weeks.
2 months.
Oh my gosh! You know, you're only as old as your knees tell you you're old. Let's face it. When you get to our age, crack, crack, crack.
Yeah, you know what? I will say this. I feel like 50 is the new 40.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah,
I think
it's like we're kind of longer. Yeah. Our health is better than, say, like your parents or grandparents.
Grandparents,
absolutely. 50, they looked like, are you retiring tomorrow? So, yeah.
There's one particular picture I can think of my grandfather that was right around the time that I was born, where he would have been 50. He was born in 1925. I was born in 1976, so he would have been 50. There's no way that we look alike at those two disparate ages. There's no doubt about it.
Hard living and many, too many cigarettes, too much hard liquor, whatever.
They did go after World War II, which we did not do. So there's no disrespect to my late grandfather.
Not either, but yes.
So, but anyway, we have a great show for you as always. We are introducing a new segment, which we'll talk about briefly, which was it was a hoot and a half. I just absolutely can't wait to get to that point. But as always, we got to pay some bills, and we do so gratefully by talking about the wonderful people on our Secret Friends Unite Patreon Super Squad. As you know, if you visit patreon.com/Secret Friends Unite, you can try out our Patreon, which gives you early shows, free shows, ad-free shows, I should say. They're not free per se, but a lot of bonus content. But the free part is you get it free for 7 days, and it's as little as $2 a month to stay on board after that. A ton of entertainment for $2, $24 a year. Oh my goodness. There's no reason you shouldn't do it. Just like these fine folks, my buddy Derek Trevelyan, the figure dude, Francie, who is the official hairdresser of Secret Friends Unite, meaning she does my wife's hair. The Xbox expansion pass, our pal Luke Lore, and my awesome Uncle Tim down in South Haven, Michigan. We appreciate you guys. Friends with Benefits level John Sedorf, our friends Kelly and Crayley, collectively known as the Phoenix Sisters Entertainment, Brendan Myers, our buddy Corey and HD, Matthew Keel, my pal Kurt Krug, our talent wrangler, who helps us out with so many of the great interviews we get for our Patreon on our Spotlight segment, and our friend Tanya Lee down there in Alabama. We appreciate you greatly, but at the top of the appreciation pyramid, as it were, the cheerleader pyramid, I don't know, isn't that what they make a pyramid, or is it some kind of rhombus? Yes, there you go.
You can't go upside down. You can't do the reverse pyramid. That does not work.
That'd be nuts. But anyway, at the top of this pyramid would be the fantastic Nias family of the Twin Cities, friends to all of us, Sean, Stella, and Henry. And in addition to being such wonderful folks, Todd has something else to tell you about. Todd, we're down to the last week or two for this great promotion we got going on.
Yeah, and this is so cool. I actually had dinner with Sean and my son, and we were talking about this. And he's asking me how it's going. I'm like, going pretty well so far, but we need more people to enter to win a fabulous gift. Basically, Sean and his family are giving away 5 annual Friends with Benefits subscriptions.
No,
just 5, yes. You'll get all the Patreon exclusives, ad-free, and first for a year. That's pretty awesome. To enter, all you need to do is one of 2 things, or do both. Subscribe and comment on one of our YouTube videos. Rate our podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcast, and then DM us that picture of what you did to either at Secret Friends Unite at Blue Sky, at Instagram at Secret Friends Unite, and email us at secretfriendsunite@gmail.com. You'll be entered. And we are planning to announce those winners on Tuesday, March 4th. So on this show. So look for that and enter, folks. You got nothing to lose but subscribing to our content, which is even cooler.
Or as Ice Cube said, nothing to lose, much to gain, and I will not finish the rest of that sentence because it was from the soundtrack of New Jack City, which was about a drug empire. So that's not appropriate. But you have nothing to lose and much to gain. Much like back in October of 1992, my goodness, that was quite a time. And it was funny, Todd, you and I were talking to the B-roll about this magazine, this dynasty, which was cataloged on a YouTube channel that you and I both very much enjoy, The Secret Galaxy. Wizard Magazine, issue 14, starring the lovely ladies of the X universe, drawn by this is Jim Lee, yeah? This is Jim Lee art?
No, it's not actually. It's a different artist that was basically Art the Bear, was a great writer or artist, and I would think he was also a inker. But yeah, he basically aped, Jim Lee's art at the time was so huge.
Time.
And
yeah.
By that point, though, he was working on Image Comics.
Right, yeah. This was at the time that Marvel let all their people escape and do their own thing. It was he
was doing Wildcats.
Image was a super group. It was like Styx. No. Thinking of what's a super group? Damn Yankees. In music.
He's Traveling Wilburys.
Yeah, there you go.
There's a few others.
And this cover, if you're looking at it on our YouTube channel, the cover portion has what I'm assuming was the included trading card kind of laid over the top of it because it's kind of chopping off.
It's in a poly bag.
Yeah,
it's in a poly bag. It's Cyberforce, which is Mark Silvestri's comic that he did for Image. So yeah, Image was everywhere. We also have an X-Men poster, which is probably the same cover. Then you've got an interview with Neil Gaiman, or Adam, the writer, basically the artist of Batman, things like that. But the cool part, Charlie, is I actually found a link. Internet Archive is amazing. They actually have all of the issues of Wizard there that you can look. They're scanned. So if you go to that link, it'll actually take you to that. But one of the images there was the top comics of this year, and it was Spider-Man 2099, number one, Supreme, number one, by basically Supreme was a character that Alan Moore created with Rob Liefeld, kind of like their own Superman. Night Stalker's number one. And then Uncanny X-Men number 294. Wow, Charlie.
So these were, I assume, the four of the top selling books of the year because they have
these were these were going to be the releases of that month. So these are going to be all September releases. So these are the comics that you should look out for.
I absolutely did pick up Spider-Man 2099 number one because this would have been the beginning of my senior year of high school. Yep, September 1st. And I did not care for it. Did not continue to reach it.
Oh, really? I always liked it. Peter David, Miguel O'Hara. I liked that book a lot.
I mean, I liked it. I think I'd like the character probably after I saw him in the Spider-Verse, and this would have been 10 years ago. And then I think I followed he had a reboot title after that time. But yeah, it's funny. Supreme and Night Stalkers, nope. Spider-Man 29 and X-Men still around. So people are still paying attention to it.
Well, yeah. Well, the only book that's still getting printed is an X-Men book. Night Stalkers, it was like a spin-off of the Midnight Suns, where it was basically you got Blade teaming up with a dude with, I don't know, who is this guy? I don't know. Does it even say? Oh, Hannibal King, Blade, Hannibal King, and Frank Drake.
Okay.
Frank Drake?
Who's Drake? Yeah, it's from Seinfeld, the Drake. Oh my God. Well, this is a great mystery. What was that website again? Will you put that in the show notes so everyone can enjoy it?
The link is actually right if you look at the October date.
Okay.
There's a link to the Internet Archive. So if you want to look back and we want to go to another Wizard comic, there's lots of great segments and things in the comic which are great. Like always, my favorite was like the rumors of, this Hollywood thing is going to happen. It's going to have this guy. And it was Bruce Willis playing Plastic Man. I'm like, you really going to happen?
Here's our fan casting of blah, blah, blah. And I saw one on this video I was watching. Cable should be played by Michael Dorn, who is Worf on Star Trek. I don't know about that.
It looks just like him. Or it was just like anybody that looked remotely like a character. That's
exactly. With or without the big ridges. Anyway.
Nicole Kidman should be Jean Grey.
Dr. Chase Meridian. Yeah. All right. Speaking of back in 1992, I know this lady was hard up for work at that time, but she was a very senior citizen. But these days, that wonderful, beautiful soul, that would be our very own Madam Web, is on the job. She's down at the corner of Hollywood and Vine, waiting for us with the latest scoops with Madam Web's news and reviews. Let's do it.
Now it's time for Madam Web's rumors and news. Take it away, boys.
Thank you, Madam Web. As always, we commend you for your service to our podcast, our country, and also you're still waiting for your bonus, which, once again, we told you, it is based on not assaulting people, behaving, and no more lawsuits. So when you get that done, your probation will end and you'll get your bonus. Cannot wait to give it to you.
And that's the 3 magic beans, right? Because, those are hard to come by. So yeah. All right. Well, up first, this, I didn't hear about this anywhere, so I don't know when this dropped, but you dropped this trailer in here, which I watched just this morning, and holy cow, Freaky Tales, is an upcoming flick with, the only thing that really caught my eye was, the absolutely magnificent Pedro Pascal, who is our main character. And I guess I must have missed it because you got a string of names in here. Ben Mendelsohn jumps out at me. Dominique Thorne jumps out at me. Did I miss where Tom Hanks was in this? Because his is
I didn't see
name.
Tom Hanks in the trailer,
Okay,
but
good.
he must be. He's in the movie. But yeah, this movie, it's set in 1987 Oakland. Freaky Tales is a multi-track mixtape of colorful characters, an NBA star, a corrupt cop, a female rap duo, teen punks, neo-Nazis, and a debt collector, on a collision course and a fever dream of showdowns and battles. Oh my goodness, Charlie. This trailer, when I saw it, there's a website called teasertrailer.com. So basically any of the trailers that are coming out are always on this website. I'm like, okay, what's there? And I saw this. I'm like, holy crap, this looks like Pulp Fiction if it was in set in the 80s, because Pulp Fiction was set in the 90s. So essentially the aesthetics and Pedro Pascal basically being a collector, and then he gets mixed up in just some weird crap. And then we get this NBA star where they're trying to rob his joint and he pulls out a samurai sword.
Right. And it's got all the knives and shit. And it's a Red Band trailer that we saw, but this is just totally nuts. And oh my gosh, great news. This comes out on April's birthday, April 4th of this year.
Wow,
so
we're theaters.
We're just 6 weeks away from this. So Todd, unfortunately, will not be impactful to our summer movie wager, which before we know it, we're going to have to get working on that too. But this is kind of nuts. So this is directed by a pair of people, I believe, and directors I've not heard of. And this is a Lionsgate. So it's going to have that Lionsgate-ish kind of vibe to it. This is just absolutely nuts. And Pedro Pascal, he's having a big year. We're getting where
does he have time to do this? I mean, it's like the dude's really busy.
Everything he does must film in his neighborhood. But we did actually get a drop date for The Last of Us season 2. It's going to be out April 13. I don't know if we missed that. So
he should plan better. He's going to have competing priorities. He's going to be on the circuit for, I guess maybe that's a good thing, because then he can talk about this movie,
all the junkets,
Last of Us, on all the junkets.
To make all the junkets about him, not about the thing he's promoting.
Exactly. And Fantastic Four. I mean, holy crap,
exactly.
3 things happening within 4 months is kind of crazy. But the thing that caught me about this movie, Charlie, it's executive produced by Too Short, the rapper.
Now,
I love it.
Was he the dude from the Ghetto Boys? Is that who I'm thinking of?
I believe it was. It was he and was Bushwick Bill.
My mind's playing tricks. Yeah, Bushwick Bill was. Yeah. He was also a little person, but he had a giant headdress. Giant headdress of dreadlocks and stuff. And sorry folks, if you're listening, Todd and I, of course, being teens of the 90s, were hip to all of the weird little rap duos that came along, groups that came along at that time, and this was one of them.
It was, So this movie, check it out. Check out the trailer. It's worth it. There's a link to the trailer in the show notes. Check out the trailer. It's well worth it. This is giving me good vibes. Very excited for just the weird movie comes out that nobody expects to be a thing, but man, looks like it's going to be hot.
No one expects it. Well, bumping right along now, Todd. I wonder if this has something to do with the fact that you just got that big tome of the Amalgam Universe.
Omnibus,
that they were like, oh, and then there was also a tome at the same time of the 2004, if I'm not mistaken, JLA and Avengers crossover, which was at a time before either franchise really didn't have a gigantic movie out at the time franchise, except for maybe the X-Men. And so those two things comes out, and then just a scant few months later, we do hear that for the first time in over 2 decades, we're getting a real honest God crossover of the 2 biggest comic companies in the whole wide world. So at Comics Pro, which is, I assume, a convention of some variety in the world, Marvel Comics EIC, CB Seb, oh God, why can't Cebulski? Yeah, and DC Comics editor-in-chief Marie Javin spoke after the keynote speech and discussed the reprints I just mentioned. I told you. And then we're quoted as saying that there would be 2 Marvel and DC crossovers later this year. And it doesn't appear that further details were released. Now, Marvel and DC crossovers date back to the 1970s. They had the one that I have that I owned it. It fell apart and disintegrated was the Treasury edition, which means something about, if you're watching this, about yay tall. Of Superman and Spider-Man, which I loved. And I know because those were they were spine bound, but they were spine bound by glue. So when the glue dissolved,
I had one too.
The book either the book went away or the cover went away. But I remember it was the cover I feel like I had longer than I had the book, and I don't know how that came to pass. But at that time, we also had going into the 80s, we had the Teen Titans and the X-Men. You had Batman and the Hulk. What were some of the other ones?
Batman and the Punisher had a crossover.
Yeah, later on, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, there were many others down the road. Then we got the was it DC versus Marvel? Then we got All Access, and then we got the Malcolm books, of course. And then the last one was the 2003 JLA Avengers. Yeah. So yeah, and JLA Avengers has not been. It had that one reprint. And and that ran out, and then it's not been back. So, like, maybe they'll think to reprint it in a cheaper edition that people can actually buy.
Just or make it available digitally. I mean, and again, I always have mixed feelings when I talk about digital comics because I have many friends who run comic shops, and I have many other friends who read print material as you described that Sean Nias does, but that has really gone the way of the dinosaur for me. I was just going through my comics just this morning because I am on a kick in my office right now where I'm framing comic covers. So I'm picking out ones out of my collection. I'm picking up these facsimile cover ones. But all that I have in my physical collection is stuff that I know doesn't exist digitally. So various Spider-Man issues, Marvel's Indiana Jones run, for example, Marvel's Star Trek in the entirety of its Star Trek run in both the 80s and the 90s doesn't exist anymore. And the same thing with these. So I hate it. It feels like the Disney Vault. We're like, now we're going to lock it up again and not make it accessible to people because it's, again, I was asking Roger, who's my guy at Argos Comics or Argos Books, who I talk about quite frequently. I said, when can I ever get my hands on that Superman Batman? And he says, they won't do it. They absolutely will not do it, which is ridiculous because it's incredible synergy for both companies. Give them a chance to create some excitement around something. So I hope that in whatever this is that's doing, it will trigger a republishing of these old issues because I would love to get my hands on, in particular, Superman and Spider-Man, because that was it's a fun kind of non-canonical story because it exists in, not in the main universes of either one of those, but who cares? It was a blast. I can't remember who they fought. It was Dr. Octopus and
was it Parasite and
no, that
somebody
else?
else?
That was later on. There was that wasn't the Superman Spider-Man one though. But they fought. Okay. I can't remember who they fought.
Parasite was in that one.
No, that was. I think that might have been. Yeah, I'm not sure, but that was later on.
Charlie, this DC Marvel omnibus that just came out. Has the Superman Spider-Man in it.
I figured. But like you said, it came and then it's just.
It's still there. You can buy it new. I mean, it's still there.
Is it? Yeah. But is
Amazon.
But is it retail?
It's less than retail.
Oh, really?
$135.
But then again, like my GI Joe books, you're reading those omnibuses. You got to lean in and make sure you got something to hold it up. So anyway, I'm fired up for this. I'm sure I will tune in, and I'm sure there will be more news on this at a later time. So, Todd, you spoke not that long ago about this exact same thing. Getting into our next story, what's the big news for the original International Man of Mystery?
Yes, so James Bond has traditionally been shaped by two people, and that has been Barbara Broccoli or the Broccoli family, and then Michael G. Wilson. Basically, they're the producers that have owned creative control of James Bond, whatever studio has produced it and directed it and released it, it's always required these two people to be in charge of James Bond, making sure he was consistent, met all of the basically all the concepts with Ian Fleming involved. So that's been basically a tenet of James Bond since he's been on the silver screen. Well,
how incredibly
Amazon,
friggin' old are those two people? This is probably why they gave it up.
Probably. So Amazon purchased the rights to James Bond. So now they own the franchise, but they still had to deal with the creative approval by those two people.
Right.
Well, money talks, and Amazon decided to speak loudly with $1 billion to basically pay them off and take creative control away from them. They'll still be involved, which is like George Lucas still being involved
until death, which is not. Oh, really?
Yeah.
So that's not at all. Yeah, because my God, the first James Bond film, 1962, Dr. No, that was more than 60 years ago. How both of these people, either one of these people have to be in their 90s.
The daughter. Her father was the guy that was Mr. Broccoli.
There we go.
She is, the Broccoli family. So basically, became the rights.
So she's not 100, is what you're saying. No, what about Michael G. Wilson?
I couldn't tell you about Michael G. Wilson. He might be the son of Mr. Wilson. I don't know.
Wilson. Oh my goodness. So there are a lot of people in the zeitgeist and in our world, our geek world, who are out there who are kind of shaking in their boots because Amazon is the big evil empire. Let's face it. But much like Walmart, like every once in a while you find yourself sucked into a Walmart, and every once in a while you end up buying something and feeling bad about it. Like I bought a really cool chaps red sweater for $3 at Amazon earlier this week. I feel terrible about it, but it was $3. And it's a good looking sweater. You know what I mean?
A $3 sweater.
And before that, I bought.
How many children had made that thing?
There might have been a kid in there. I don't know. That could have been one. Yeah, and they
actually stole the sweater off a child.
Yeah, exactly.
Who was freezing and gave it to you.
Well, that is how they make money. But at any rate, Amazon it's the necessary evil that so many of us are like, well, there's no way but you're like, oh, look, there's this thing that I can have tomorrow. It happens. And Amazon Prime happens. Todd, I know you've been on, you've been off. Are you back on again?
Oh, I've never stopped being an Amazon Prime owner because.
Oh, okay. I thought you told me
it's useful at times if Logan needs to get something delivered right to the dorm. Yeah. So it works. Yes, it's not great. They've done some things recently where they've just been a lot of billionaires have been basically bowing to a certain orange person, which just means that the reason they're doing that is because they want to make more money and want to get rid of any regulations that stops them from doing it. So God, we are where we are. But
just can't even comprehend it. But regardless.
Getting back to this. So what this does is it does open up the door so Amazon can do whatever the hell they want with James Bond.
Right.
We could have James Bond using Alexa devices. He could be getting his devices delivered from Q via Amazon Prime. Right. He could be putting Amazon Prime shows on in the background. That is probably the worst fear. The other fear is they're just going to do spin-offs and all this content, which kind of waters down James Bond. I mean, as much as you can say about James Bond over the years, good, bad, whatever, there's been no more than probably a movie every 3 years.
You know what? The best example of that is one of my very, 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 very favorite musicians is Jackson Browne. He turns out an album, even in his prime, every couple of years with only 8 or 9 tracks. So it's very sparing, but what he puts out is fantastic. So that's not exactly true of James Bond, but let's face it, more good than bad or more memorable than not memorable. Yeah. I'd say so. So yeah, I would liken James Bond to the musical stylings of Jackson Browne. He's very selective about what he does, turns it out at a time frame that makes sense for him, and that's good. So yeah, you're right. It could just turn into the McDonald's version of James Bond, which sucks. But I don't know. There's absolutely no way to know. Now, I'm not saying Amazon doesn't produce great content, because I'm going to talk in the Geek Easy about, Reacher is back, and I love that show. But it certainly isn't as good in its third season as it was in its first season.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
I've continued to fail to catch up on Reacher, so
Yeah.
I really like the first season. But I would say that is a series, that the author's still alive,
Yeah.
Lee Childs, and he is involved as a producer.
Yeah.
Ian Fleming is long dead, and
Long
all these
dead,
people.
yeah.
So there's really no one to protect James Bond for integrity except for no one. Jeff Bezos,
Right.
probably. He's the only one who can say James Bond would never do that. Or why can't James Bond drive a Tesla? I mean,
I do not need his next supercar to be a Tesla. So time will tell. Since it's just happened, there's no telling when we will see something James Bond related again. But all right. Well, there's nothing in this age that's more typical than the cancellation of a project that never existed. And we have a couple from the House of Ideas version of what is now the MCU. That would be a delay to Nova, who's a character that you might have no idea who it is if you're not a comic person, and the Strange Academy, which is, I'm assuming, related to Doctor Strange. But anyway, these were two projects that were rumored, I think, within the last couple of years. But yeah, I mean, Kevin Feige apparently had even chatted publicly about the Nova project, hired a showrunner for it. But now we're getting news that may not be the case, and it might be, I think, certainly attributed to fatigue. So, Todd, what's your familiarity with Strange Academy? I know we probably both know Nova. This is an old heritage character, but Strange Academy. Yeah.
Strange Academy was just like, it was a spin-off comic essentially to teach, kind of like X-Men, to teach young magic users how to use their abilities. I believe Doctor Strange was head of the academy, but they had people also that were in charge of it to teach them how to use their abilities, other magic users. So it was very much like a X-Men, Xavier Academy for the Gifted, but this was for magic people. So cool idea, good art style. Storylines were fun. And I thought it was a cool idea. I just think it's hard to pull this off unless it's like a animated thing where you feel like, oh, it's not going to be beholden to everything else, where you can introduce some of these characters, make a fun show, but is it going to be the one that introduces all these characters in like the MCU? Probably not. So yeah, and there's another show that they shelved called Horror Inc., which was going to be a proposed horror show, which I'm trying to think. Horror Inc. Wasn't there a Terror Inc. character? There was like a comic called Terror Inc. It was.
I feel like we may have even talked about it at some point, which is even more embarrassing. That I wouldn't necessarily remember it, but
it was a comic. It was a comic from the '80s. Called Terror Inc.
But this does go on to say that there was a shotgun of Marvel projects in 2021, 2022, including Black Widow, Shang-Chi, Eternals, Spider-Man No Way Home, Doctor Strange, yada, yada, yada. And none of those was, possibly with the exception of Spider-Man, was really a standout hit. So Marvel started to really comprehend their own concept of diminishing returns. And so I think you can understand how this is just going to make them more cautious. There's, and the times of them being able to roll out something that's a complete unknown, no disrespect to Timothée Chalamet, like they did with Guardians of the Galaxy back in 2014, and have the entire world love it, those days might be gone. So I mean, what does this mean for the future of the MCU? Probably really just drawn things back. And as this even mentioned, kind of going back to with stuff that's a little bit more grounded. So we're about to get Daredevil. That's going to drop next month. And we have the Thunderbolts, which is not super grounded, but it does have some less fantastical characters that are a part of it. And then we have the more traditional side of it with the Fantastic Four, which is, a Marvel dynasty.
Oh, that's so grounded. I mean, they travel to space. They have stretchy guy,
it happens all the time.
Fire guy. So grounded.
All the time. But this year we're also getting Wonder Man, which I have no idea what the tone of that is going to be. But it's costly. Secret Invasion was very costly for them, not only from a financial standpoint, but certainly from a critical standpoint, because I really don't know anyone who thought Secret Invasion was great unless you happen to work for Disney. And you're like, oh my God, it's a triumph.
Yeah, the idea of essentially the Super Skrull, Amelia Clark, with all the abilities of already actually breaking kind of all the rules and saying, oh yeah, where did she go? We'll never see her again. She flew back to her home planet.
She is Poochied, exactly correct. So,
they do mention here, Charlie, as well. They're like, considering Marvel has laid so many or buried so many seeds for other things to happen, and they have still not developed those. Like Clea was shown in Doctor Strange, very into that. Star Fox was shown. Harry Styles, right?
Oh my God, Harry Styles.
Shown. Yeah, and then Hercules. What's his name
from Ted Lasso?
Ted Lasso, So you got all these things that are just out there, and then Puck as well, Puck.
Patton, my guy Patton. Yeah, it's terrible.
Exactly. So all these things, and they're just going to probably be left. So Marvel's got to be very careful because they've got more ideas than they do have money or series, showrunners, scripts. The one thing I think should have happened is Nova, because the reason I think of Nova is because if you think of him as a young character to be part of a new Avengers or something like that.
Agreed.
I think you need someone like that to be part of that. And the fact that they never developed it, like they had the Nova Corps, of course, introduced in Guardians of the Galaxy. I'm surprised they didn't introduce someone like that along the way, or could have been like, now that Guardians of the Galaxy is over, maybe you have a Nova series where you could say, oh, he's going to go have adventures, or this is how this kid gets these powers, this helmet, and introduced and then brought in. Because I think we do need the next generation of heroes. We've got some, but we don't have a lot. And a lot of those characters are not very powered, right? They're kind of powered, but not, world bending power owners that would really make any Avengers. So
most definitely. Well, we will know more, and we'll certainly know more by the end of the summer if Marvel is pointing themselves in the right direction, going in these different vectors, if they're going to bring back the faith of their audience. But anyway, Todd, I've known about this next one for a very long time. There was a program, and I'm going to say it's the early 2010s, if I'm not mistaken, called Star Wars Detours, and it was bandied about as an animated program. The style was a little bit more whimsical. The characters were kind of like, you see this picture of Darth Vader pictured here.
Goofy CGI.
Yeah, just very, very kind of ridiculous. But Seth Green was kind of driving the bus behind it. Seth Green, of course, of Family Guy fame, Robot Chicken. This was it was called Star Wars Detours, announced at Star Wars Celebration back in 2012. And there was a trailer that was run there, which is why, we have images that were seen. Seth Green said there were over 40 episodes that had been completed, and then nothing. So what happened?
Yeah, so we did get a trailer of this. Actually, it was shown. Yeah, it was like a goofy comedy, kind of dealing with like the original trilogy. And I'm assuming they probably went into other eras as well. And that's what Robot Chicken was known for. It was like they all the jokes, all those things. And the bad, I think what really we can account this for is just, Disney bought Lucasfilm 2 years later. Yeah. Right? 2014. So because of that, I think they probably felt like this doesn't fit our vision. It's not hitting the right, it's not bringing back Star Wars to a prominence. It needs to have more elevated level of, I don't know, lore and things like that versus just being goofy. Yeah. But then they continue to make the Star Wars Lego specials. So I'm like, I don't know what they're doing.
And that was after the first one of those Lego specials. It wasn't like they did it right away. So perhaps it was, they were like, because their first big production was The Force Awakens. And then maybe they just, and that wasn't necessarily reaching out to the little kids, which is now, they have the Lego specials. They have the Young Jedi Adventures is the current one. What
was the one they made? It was animated as well. Revolution, was that one of those cartoons?
Oh, the Resistance. Yeah.
Resistance.
Yeah. This kind of
they had the Free Runners, which was a Lego, right?
Yeah, Freemakers, if I'm not saying. Yeah.
Freemasons?
Yes, it was the Freemasons around the country.
I mean, do you really think that Star Wars is too elevated to have like goofy comedy? It's relied on it. It's part of its DNA.
Absolutely. And is this among the same, thought process of why the holiday specials stayed buried, which of course it doesn't. And it's terrible. That's the reason. And it's unfortunately not unironically, silly. It's, I don't know, if a sentient bag of cocaine could write, it would have written the Star Wars Holiday Special. I would love to see this 40 episodes produced, and they're just going to shit can it forever.
Well, they do account for the fact that it's at this point, though, it'd have to be edited, upgraded. Basically, this is now 12 years old, and money would be needed added. But I mean, so basically, they're saying, is it worth it to be? And I'm like thinking, this day and age, basically something that's already done and just adding a little bit of money. It seems like a no-brainer to me. Like, you just put that out there.
In the world of 24/7, 365 limitless content, yes, absolutely. You have to give people a reason to stay to do one more month of Disney Plus, one more month of wherever this would end up. And even if they farmed it out the way that other you end up seeing Batman on Max, and then you end up seeing them over on Prime, you know what I mean? So just farm it out. Even the Star Wars comics, there's still ones that are produced, I think, by Dark Horse, they get like the Star Wars Adventures or something. So I don't know, I would love to tell you that I can't believe it's not even found its way out, bootleg style, the way that the old holiday special did.
Like Seth Green's like, well, maybe this will get made like the Deadpool film that they did just to get that out to get interest. And
exactly. So I don't know. I would love to see it. But yeah, you're right. As far as from a branding standpoint, from optics, you could see why they feel that way. But you're right. I don't disagree, because fun and doing something that appeals to your heritage, your legacy fans, yes, but keep the free makers and the resistance and the all the Lego stuff, keep that too. Work it from both sides. Burn the candle at both ends. So I don't know, Kathleen Kennedy, you and I disagree about a lot of stuff, but we disagree about this. I want to see this.
Yes, I would too, but there's the trailer. If you are interested, check out the trailer. If I find it, I'll put it in the show notes, probably just the link to it. So
that would be good. All right. Yes. Well, that's it. I think we're wrapping up the news. We have got to get out of here. I've got my Uber app out, and a very sweet smelling Cadillac Escalade pulls up. We're getting into the back of that sucker. It's a fancy car, but he's still got the AM radio on. And he's playing this very familiar advertisement.
Talk nerdy to me. Talk nerdy to me.
Sitting in the Geek Easy, cover band's playing, drinks are poured, and we are getting our nerd on. So there wasn't a lot of new stuff for me this week, but I did watch The Gorge on Apple TV Plus last night with my wife. This is the movie we talked about before. This is Anya Taylor-Joy and Miles Teller as they are elite snipers sitting across from each other as they watch over the gorge. No one knows what's in the gorge, but they have to stop things from coming
out of the gorge. Keep saying the word gorge.
Gorge. There's a song called The Gorge. When you're living in the gorge looks at you. Oh,
what?
I don't know. I made that up.
I think so.
Or did I?
Gorge. Gorgeous George of the Gorge.
Sigourney Weaver's in this, but there are not many people in this movie. It's really Miles Teller and Anya Taylor-Joy. They both are dealing with personal issues, which are brought to you at the very beginning of the movie, where he's dealing with some of his past sins as an elite sniper. She's dealing with a family tragedy. And so basically they're set by their governments to sit on this post for a year, and just to make sure they have no contact with the human world and they cannot talk to each other.
And
across the gorge, there's no phones.
It's your typical Russia USA kind of thing, or do they not get into that?
Yeah, pretty much. It's just
not like
the East. East takes care of their side. The West takes care of their side.
It's not, it's like Top Gun Maverick, where it's an enemy country is doing this thing.
No, there's just an agreement made and between the countries, and then like he's taking over, and this is not a spoiler. He's taking over for a British sniper.
Gotcha.
We don't see who she takes over for, but that's where we're at.
Yeah, the feeling.
So essentially, this movie, I liked a lot for the first 2/3 of it, because it is more about them interacting from across the gorge, which is very cute, very sweet. They're very likable in how they come across. There is some elements of action in that time period, but I think it's kind of cool, but it wasn't like the main focus.
Yeah.
Then you get to the last third of the movie, and it turns into an all-out action film. My wife at times compared to like The Mummy, where it was a little bit like, I understood what they did. It just felt like it was very disjointed. Like it was just like all of a sudden everything I liked about this film now turned into a different movie, which I was expecting, but I thought it would be like blended a little bit better. But the two leads make it amazing. In regards to just watching their chemistry on set, I think they do have a lot of chemistry. Anya Taylor-Joy, man, she looks good in blonde hair,
she
black
looks
hair,
good in everything.
bald.
She look
Even bald, she'd be beautiful.
Yeah, she would. Yeah, they'll put her in the next Star Trek thing. She'd be a Deltan, just like in that movie.
And Miles Teller, I'm coming around to like him. Yeah, sometimes I'm like, oh, is he just a man in a mustache, and that's why they hired him? But he's got a full beard rather than a mustache in this one, so it's not about just a mustache.
That's what does it.
But
beard.
He was likable in this. I thought he had a lot of charm, and I say both of the actors do physical action very well. We've all seen movies where certain leads, it's like you don't look like you could beat a fly, and Anya Taylor-Joy has some amazing motion movements in this where she's doing things. Miles Teller is very well trained. So if you can put your brain on hold for the last third of this film, it's definitely worth a watch. It's on Apple TV.
It was the kind of the big blue sky hole CGI slugfest kind of deal.
There was a reveal and some things, and it's like, okay. And it was like, okay. Yeah. But it just felt a little disjointed, but it's still enjoyable. Highly enjoyable. Definitely popcorn movie.
Fair. Well, I rocketed through a few things. And as I was telling you, I often have to send myself a note midweek to be like, what am I watching? Because it's just stuff like I'm reading a lot of comics right now, a lot of older stuff. But there's a couple shows out there. But first and foremost, we went and saw The Monkey on Friday night in the theaters. Right now, this is an adaptation of a Stephen King short story, which was kind of the main reason that we went, because April's such a big Stephen King fan. From the trailer, which we discussed here, and then subsequently, I think we've seen it a couple of more times. I didn't really know where the tone of this was going, and I think I was kind of resistant because I didn't really want to sit through just a gore fest. And it turns out this was kind of a cute comedy, very dark. It was basically splatter horror, so it was, stuff flying around. But we start out in 1999 with two twin brothers, who later in present day we get those same two twin brothers again, bookending the story. So the cold open of this movie is an airline pilot. Played by Adam Scott with a big mustache. Mustaches keep coming back into this. Walks into a oddity shop in, I'm assuming, London, maybe somewhere in Pakistan, because he's talking to a Pakistani Indian gentleman, and he's got this horrific monkey, and he's like, I got to get rid of this thing. And the guy's like, well, I don't really buy toys. Plus, that thing is broken because he's a monkey that beats on a drum, but his right arm is stuck up. He says, you don't want his arm to come down, so I wouldn't talk too much about that, because when the monkey finishes his drum roll, somebody dies. And we kind of got that from the trailer. But to keep this kind of
definitely felt like almost like a Final Destination where it's like
exactly.
The monkey killing you, but he's making something happen that will kill you.
Right. Yeah. And it was, you're right. It was very Final Destination-y, like, oh, this, that's going to cause this plank to swing over and hit this window, which is going to shatter, and then it'll cut your jugular or whatever. Yeah. And it's pretty crazy. So this monkey is obviously a totem for the devil. And it somehow, some way finds its way back because Adam Scott has an estranged family. Tatiana Maslany is his ex-wife, who is raising these twin boys alone back home. And somehow this same monkey, which Adam Scott destroys, appears back home. And then things go poorly from there. And it takes us from the 90s to present day, where the two brothers are grown up. It's Bill. I'm going to say Bill and Ted. I'm not going to remember their names. It was Bill and maybe it was Bill and Ned. I don't know. Now I can't remember the characters' names.
Yes, Bill and Ned.
Will and Ned.
Will
and Ned. Exactly. But this was a dark comedy, which I won't say it took a ton of chances, but yeah, it did the splatter horror in some ways that were pretty crazy. It spared enough of the gore. It wasn't gore porn, which is something I don't want to sit through, where it's just horror porn of just people getting slaughtered and stuff. But like I said, from the trailer, maybe I'd have to watch.
It's not like cartoonish, it's just so over ridiculously dumb horror, oh my God, That's disturbing.
Absolutely correct. So, I mean, and they're just weird deaths. One of them involves bees, so it's worth going to see the bee one.
The bees.
But yeah, I enjoyed it. I don't think it's having a banner first weekend, but I think it may be set to outperform. Or I don't think it's going to outperform Captain America, which is obviously in its very pivotal second weekend.
Week 2, yeah. Or week 2, it's probably going to make 55. This movie probably only 10
or 15, or maybe less. So
I assume the budget's not very big on this movie.
Yeah, because this was either a Lionsgate or it was one of, or I'm not sure if it was a Blumhouse. I cannot remember now without Total Recall. But anyway, it was fun. If you can handle silly splatter, I think it's worth checking out, I would say. And then real quickly, go ahead.
Yeah, and he directed Longlegs.
There we go. Okay.
He's getting well renowned, and he's got another movie coming out. So yeah, he's got a history of horror. And a fun fact, he played the young Anthony Perkins in Psycho 3 back in the day.
Oh, okay. That I did not know.
The director, yeah.
Gotcha. All right. So Todd, have you watched The White Lotus? Have you tuned into it?
I watched episode of season 1.
So it did.
So they're at a hotel and wacky hijinks occur, and Scott, what's her name?
Jennifer Coolidge.
Been in it. Yeah, he's been in previous seasons. Yeah,
she is not on the show anymore because
I heard something happened to her. Yes,
I mean Jennifer Coolidge is fine. Her character is not on the show anymore. But anyway, you're right. It's continuing. So this is the 3rd season. I think the 2nd episode is out today. We haven't watched it yet, but it's the same. It's the same concept. The White Lotus is this global mega fancy resort in different exotic locations around the world. And I think each of the seasons starts out with basically the end of the season, something awful is happening from afar. And in this case, it's a young man who's trying to do meditation or learn about it. And then there's gunfire in the distance. And people are running. And he's there. He mentions he's there with his mother. He's a 20-something college student. He says, please let it not be my mom. And he sloshes into the water because in this resort, the pond in between. And he's like, God, don't let it be my mom. And there's a body floating towards him. And then we jump back to the beginning. Sure. I would have to go back and know for sure, but I believe that's pretty much how it went with the other 2 seasons. So, if you like this kind of long form mystery, it's definitely for you. It's also one that it's not bad to wait until it's all the way over and then shotgun it through because it's just that kind of story. So, so Todd, I assume you didn't continue with it because it didn't grab you.
I get to easily distracted to what else? And I forget to come back and just
fair enough. So anyway, so that's there on Max, and a returning show, which I obviously mentioned a bit in the last segment, is Reacher. Now this is starring the massive Alan Richardson. Remember, I couldn't remember his last name last week.
Yes.
But yeah, he's continuing the Lee Child's novel series, which is a favorite of my dad's, and so he was super psyched about this. I know we sat and shotgun a bunch of episodes when he was for Christmas last year. But this is the 3rd season, and Prime is at it again with their weird ass release schedule. They dropped the first 3 episodes on Friday. And again, it's a series where, it's a book, there's one storyline. It's not like there's a middle episode where, the wacky neighbor comes to visit and you can't not watch it. But this is the book. I think it's The Persuader is the name of the book that this is adapting, which sees, Reacher trying to catch up with his ultimate villain that got away. And it's taken place in Maine. So again, it's very Stephen King-ish.
Is this where it's killing all of his former?
That was last season.
Oh, that was last season. Okay.
Yeah, that was whatever book that was. So in this one, his foil, or the girl who's obviously going to fall for him, is a British actress doing a passable Boston accent, but also trying to sneak in all the Boston-y stuff she can, like, we'll go down by the ads and blah, 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 so big time. But also, as revealed in the trailers, they have the dude who is Razor Fist from Shang-Chi, who is bigger than Alan Richardson, and you see him getting a punch out. Don't you remember from the trailers?
Yeah.
And that has not happened yet as of episode 3, but it's more, Reacher is the ultimate Mary Sue. He knows everything. He can do everything. He's built like a brick shit house, so he can flip a car over his head, not literally, but And I would say that gets,
Oh, that's coming.
yeah, I would say it gets tiresome, but you know what? He really does it well. And particularly it's one of these, better by association. Let's not forget Reacher. There were 2 Reacher films a decade ago starring Tom Cruise, who's one of the littlest guys in Hollywood, where Reacher is supposed to look like Alan Richardson does. So he nails it. And he carries out the role.
So if Wizard had cast Reacher back in the day, that's what should have happened.
Yeah, it would have been Mel Gibson.
Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah, exactly right. So, but anyway, that is.
I am Reacher. I'm American. Can't
Yes.
you tell by my accent? I'm from Boston.
I'm from Boston, or I'm from down south, y'all. But anyway, yeah, that's available on Prime. And again, one of the few things that I think Prime really nails is this show. Let's hope it's also the case with James Bond. So, Todd, did you finish this? Are you into Reacher at all? I can't remember if we talked about this before.
Oh no, I love the first season. It was just I watched with the wife, and I'm like, "Do you want to watch Reacher?" I don't know. And it just ends up being like, "Oh, then it just falls off the radar."
It's another thing. Yeah,
much stuff. I will say Roku does a good job now, where they'll you can save shows to put in your watch list on Roku. So it's not like you have to go into the app of each one. It'll just be what you want to watch. And I'm like, or what you've been watching, which is great because then it's
they do that, and it's helpful to jump back to something, but it's also very willy-nilly because sometimes stuff will disappear and then it'll come back again. Disappear. Like we're watching Shameless right now. I'm like, oh, we just want to jump back to that episode. It'll be there, and then I'll turn the TV on, off and on again, and it won't be there. So, but it's not like it's that you just go to Netflix and find it. But yeah, I would love it if Roku would let me save a show and then it would give me a ping or something. But also we have the TV Time app for that. So
well, you turn on your Roku every day, so you could just go to your Roku and what is on my wish list to watch,
right?
Yeah, and do that.
It's usually really.
There's just I think there's a TV app that will actually do that.
It's TV Time will absolutely. We also we put shit in our calendar, so I'm like, what's going on today? Oh, it's Thursday, so it's Reacher Day or whatever. I know something that old people do, right? So, but anyway,
it's like the TV guide for today's youth.
Exactly correct. Well, anyway, that takes us out of the Geek Easy. I've got my Air Qantas app out. It is time to get down to the land down under. Hologram Tina and the mutants are awaiting us for a brand new Thunderdome topic. Let's go for it.
Welcome to another edition of Thunderdome!
Thank you, Tina. The mutants have been gathered for a topic or a game to be entertained. And this week we're starting a new segment called Cover Story. So this brought me back, and Charlie, we both went through this. Back in the day when you're at Blockbuster, your local video shop, you would see all of these movie covers. And you'd be like, okay. And then certain ones stuck in your head, but you never watched. Either too scary, too weird, or too odd, or nobody wanted to watch that movie. But that cover stuck in your head. So I said, let's make this a segment where we pick a random VHS cover from that time, and we just finally watch the movie. If it was either one we remember seeing or just one that holy crap, because that's how you picked a movie half the time, right? Because there weren't a lot of review sites, there weren't anything. So basically,
there's nothing.
What is this cover?
And
crazy.
And the direct-to-video market, or it was certainly things from overseas, which I definitely feel like this was an overseas film, because low production values, and he had a couple of named stars in it, but just a couple. You know what I mean? But yeah, you're absolutely right. And again, I assume if you're watching this on YouTube, Todd has the image up of what this cover is, but we have a film, and I'll interpolate this cover image, and then we will get into it. The film in question is The Company of Wolves from 1984. Now we will be covering films from 1985 and in subsequent years, 40 years after, so we'll go into 86 and 87 potentially as time goes by. The Company of Wolves is about a teenage girl in a country manor in modern day, falls asleep while reading a magazine, and has a disturbing dreams and dreams within dreams involving wolves prowling the woods beyond her bedroom window. Film here in early 2025 is available to watch on Prime, which is how I watched it, or the Roku channel. Looking at the poster, this absolutely iconic image is of an individual, a gentleman with his mouth open wide and the snout of a wolf coming out of his mouth. And it's an overlay over a full moon where it says the desire, the fantasy, the nightmare, in the dead of night, the beast is unleashed. Company of Wolves. Whoops, you made the image. Oh, there it is. Okay. Yes. Now, what I told April to go look this up because there is actually some corroborating reviews from obviously people who have seen the film, which are almost too small to read. But Todd, since I've done all the talking, read these caps for us right quick.
Yeah.
So
this is interesting. Yeah. So basically it says rich, exciting, full of marvels, full of sexuality and violence by a company that's too small to see.
Yep.
A magnificent and unique piece of work, always gripping. It is merely a classic. 5 stars. A lot of fun, wonderfully wicked, with a small note of who said this. We don't know, but this is on video cassette and video disc. Charlie. Yes. And then there's a picture of the woman who doesn't look like the actual woman in the movie.
Not even a little bit. It looks, this is stunt double. And she is wearing a red cloak with a hood and carrying a picnic basket. I wonder what they could have pulled that from.
Yeah. Apparently this movie was inspired by, they want to do tales of like Little Red Riding Hood, things like that, and other tales of wolves. So this movie is, I guess, kind of like an anthology. Kind of reminds me of like Tales of the Dark Side, where essentially it was a list. It was basically a bunch of stories being retold either by Granny, someone else. But that's not the fun part. The fun part is this cast is kind of crazy too. Angela Lansbury is the headliner. She's Granny.
Yeah.
David Warner plays the father of both the modern day father and then the father in the dreams. And then just a bunch of other actors. Stephen Rhea, I think, was one I recognized him.
Yeah, I picked out one, Brian Glover, who was, I love it because I had this with the caption on. The young man who follows our character around is called Amherst Boy. His father, Brian Glover, was one of the bar patrons in American Werewolf in London. Okay. And then he was and he was also one of the, I think he was a prison guard or one of the inmates in Alien 3. So English production. So, but yes.
So let's kick this thing off. So this movie is essentially, the main character of this movie is just a sleeping girl.
Yeah, exactly.
who is within her own dream.
Who has been playing with makeup and has it applied, much like, remember Homer Simpson's makeup gun? I think that's how she put her makeup on.
So this is weird. It opens up weird. Basically, it's set in modern times in England. This family is coming home, and they talk about someone who they want to get up, and they find out it's our main character who is just sleeping through the day. She's been reading a magazine, and everyone's trying to wake her up, but she will not wake up. Like, they're yelling at her, get up. No, what? She will not wake up. And so she's it's fake sleeping, apparently.
Yeah,
or something.
And it's her older sister who's trying to get her to come up. And again, our main character's bedroom is on like the 50th floor of this house because she's climbing upstairs. She goes down this narrow hallway where the pictures aren't on the wall. They're on the ground next to the wall. And it looks like there's leaves blowing through and shit. And she's beating on the door and she keeps calling her. She says, "You're a pest. Get up. You're a pest. Like, she's talking shit to her. I'm like, I'm not going to open the door for this. And even that, I'm like, no, I'm sleeping. And then, so she's sleeping next to this magazine, which obviously we said in the intro part, and there's this persistent theme of what sounds like kind of like the Wurlitzer music that you might hear in an old-timey baseball game, doot 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 doot, and her open window with leaves and shit, like the strongest wind blowing in, and there's
a lot of old creepy dolls.
Yeah. Her toys were so weird. And then her window is open, which is weird because later on it's closed at the climax of the film. And there's a mountain in the distance, but there's obviously a full moon, but it's obviously very cloudy. And then we get into what's happening inside her head, because we don't stay at all in modern day. We go back to a young girl, and you're assuming it's wherever it is that in the distance that she's looking, and what pretty much looks like a set from either Labyrinth or maybe The Dark Crystal or some other kind of Henson Productions, where it's like a weird
1984.
Yeah.
So this is this film feels like that era, like the music, the shots, the and then the settings felt very real, but like set, like we're actually on a set.
Think about Meatloaf's music video for "I Do Anything for Love." That's what
true.
this felt like. Yeah,
Puffy shirts.
Yeah,
a lot of that going on.
Flowing hair, and they had perfected the color contact lens. That was a big deal here. But yes, this young girl she's at the church in town, and they are burying her older sister, who was the sister who was banging at her door in the real world and calling her a pest and all this different stuff.
Oh, she was killed by wolves. Yeah, that's
she
the
was
thing.
killed by
Basically,
wolves.
Killed by wolves, chased, and they bury her.
Yeah, exactly. So they're burying her, and then obviously the mother to not only our main character, whose name is Rosalie, the mother is distraught. So the grandmother, who is played by Angela Lansbury, I'm assuming this was during summer break from Murder, She Wrote. I think it was probably out at this time.
Exactly.
Or it came on shortly thereafter. But I know that was a program of the 80s. I don't know if it was mid to late 80s, whatever it was. Says, no, I'll take you for the night. Come back to my estate, which is judging, it's either a 5-minute walk or like a 5-hour walk from wherever they are, because that comes back later in the movie that apparently it can take you all night to walk there. I guess it depending on where you're starting from. And when grandmother has her back, first of all, she spends a lot of time telling her granddaughter how stupid she is, which I'm the great. So this girl must have absolutely horrible self-esteem issues, because she dreams of people telling her stupid, and then her sister is bullying her in the real world. So you would understand why the first thing that happens in her dream is that her sister is dead. Because
how old is this girl too? That's the thing I was trying to remember. Because when she would talk to her grandmother, she talked to her parents, she was like, "Oh, mommy, tell me, what does it mean?" And it was like, is she 12?
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't tell. She's like 12, or was she 18, acting like she was 12? Because she was a full-grown woman. But
I wouldn't say she was a full-grown woman, but I'd say she's maybe 15, realistically speaking. But yeah, she's talking like an 8-year-old.
Apparently, get courted by a boy.
I guess. Well, we won't put the cart before the horse, but yeah, she's back at Angela Lansbury's place, and so now we get our first dream within a dream, because Angela Lansbury says, "Oh, God, they introduce them like, well, a real beast is hairy on the inside, because men are animals, and if you have sex with them, then they're just going to throw you away like trash," and blah 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 blah. So that's
Charlie. Never trust a man whose eyebrows meet.
Right. Which is bad, because in my family, that was a very common thing between like my grandfather and my brother and my dad, but I didn't get bit by the bug. But yes.
Well, you shave it then.
I think I did. I think I did at one point, and it never came back. But yes, that was very pronounced back in the day. But so now we get the dream within the dream, where Gran is telling her the story after calling her stupid a bunch of times. That, well, back in the day, there was this woman, and she got married to a passing stranger. Who they got married, obviously, right after meeting, and everybody's dancing through the forest and then they go off to their marital bed, and the guy strips down, and but then there's a hedgehog in their bed, because she has a mischievous relative who put a hedgehog there as a joke. I will also note, quick sidebar, there was more random live animals in this movie than anything I've ever seen.
Yes.
Like
dogs,
here's
wolves,
a duck, here's a
frog.
So many frogs. I mean, it was
cocks.
This was a trip to the zoo, but like for every random reason. And and it didn't matter what season it was, because there were bullfrogs in a snowstorm. There was just nothing going on in this that made any kind of sense. And you could chalk that up to the fact that it was a dream, but still, it was like, hey, we raided a London animal sanctuary warehouse, and we took all the animals with us, and we opened a door and just shoved them onto the soundstage. That's what
the producer was an animal lover, Charlie.
I guess. But anyway, so
these are all my dogs.
Yeah. More dogs, please.
Just wanted on set one day.
So they send so the guy throws the hedgehog out the door, but there's a full moon, and his eyes go yellow. So this is the first minute, and then he leaves. And the woman waits for him.
I need to. He, all of a sudden, his demeanor changed from
he says, "I gotta go take a piss," and that's what he does. He wanders out, and he never comes back. She waits the night, and he never comes back. She moves on with her life. She marries another dude. She has 3 of the most screamingest children I've ever heard. That they're sitting down to dinner one night, and this guy,
I thought she was going to cut her daughter while she was peeling potatoes because she's like got a knife right next to her. She's like, "Oops, slashed you."
Whoops! Now you don't have a finger. You lost an eye.
And then what calms a kid down? Just give him a potato.
Yeah, there you go. That's all you fed him back in the day.
A potato.
Put a whole potato in their mouth. So this original husband guy wanders in. He's got shaggy long hair, but amazingly clean shaven. I do love that when someone says, "Well, I don't go get a haircut, but I always shave." Which I feel like back in those days, people just didn't really do that much. Because in more modern stuff, everybody's got a beard. But anyway, he's like, you didn't wait for me, and you had other children. And he comes in, and she gives him a nice stew, and then he flips out, and then we get a nearly 90-second sequence of this guy.
And it was horrific.
Tearing his, and again, it's very of the time. Practical effects. He tears his flesh off of his face, protracted. Then he's covered red as he continues to morph into not a fantastical werewolf like a man wolf, but like a wolf. And so he's all the way changed. He's still beet red when the new husband walks through the door and turns back, and the beet red wolf now looks like a normal wolf with fur. It's not red. He grabs an axe and with a single blow chops its head off. This is great. The head does it's like throwing a basketball. You're doing free throws. It careens through the air. It lands in a bucket of milk. And the head floats to the surface, and it's the dude's face. The husband
as
number
he
one.
was, as she saw him originally. Yes.
Exactly.
And
so that's the end of the dream within a dream. So that's it. Rosalie goes to bed. The next day she's back home, and we get and then she's back home in the village, and she has a suitor who's this idiot boy who never gets a name. He's called Amorous Boy, as we said in the captions. And at this point, it's just kind of a lot of long stretches of terrible dialogue. They go for like a quote unquote lover's walk or a courting walk after church one Sunday. And he's chasing her through the woods, and it's very playfully gives her a smooch or whatever it is. She climbs up a tree that's like 300 feet in the air above the forest.
And there's a snake in the tree.
Yeah, there was an abundance of
boa constrictor.
There was an abundance of she in wintertime in rural England, which I feel like if you did a little bit of research.
Boa constrictors.
Yeah, exactly. She climbs up into this nest, which is I think it's a heron or maybe a peacock of some kind. It flies off.
Yes, I think it might have been a heron, because herons love to nest in tall, janky trees.
200 feet up. And there are eggs there. And when the eggs crack open, we already mentioned this, it has this weird-ass little figurine of a baby.
A little baby that cried.
And then it has a single tear that pops out. She takes...
Well, what else did she find in the nest, Charlie? A mirror, and also, what was it? Lip balm, gloss. And she puts it on, and she sees it.
The heron knocked over CVS. That's what was going on.
Apparently,
I guess.
Yeah. And so she keeps the baby and puts it in her pocket. Apparently,
and she takes the lip gloss and the mirror, and so now she's back in town.
Well, the boy lost her.
Yeah,
and then he sees that this cow had got destroyed by a wolf. So the boy cried wolf. That's what Amorous Boy did.
They get it all
cried
back
wolf
together.
in town.
Yeah.
And there's a big brawl because they think that maybe the daughter's hurt.
Yeah.
And Rosalind's dad,
David Warner, runs off.
Yeah. Amorous Boy's dad, because why would your son leave
my daughter in the woods?
My daughter alone? And so then they decided to go have a big wolf hunt.
Right. And so they hunt out to get a wolf.
I couldn't find why they had the duck. I'm like,
it was bait because
bait. I figured that out. I thought all of a sudden I'm like, oh, okay.
They use it as bait, and so they trap the wolf and they shoot it. And David Warner goes back to his little hovel where his family is waiting, and he said he's disillusioned. And he said, when I killed the wolf, I decided to chop off its forepaw as a souvenir,
to show that,
which is disgusting. And then he said, when I did that, it turned into a hand. And then
was it a man or a wolf?
Right. And then of course, then they throw the hand in the fire and it starts to melt, which is I don't think you'd want to throw a fleshy limb in the fire in your house because
your house is going to smell like human flesh, which I have never smelt rotting flesh, but or human flesh burning.
Yeah,
but I don't want to guess because I know burning hair doesn't smell good because I've burned the hair on my arm. But that gets us to the second story that Granny tells Rosaline, and it's basically, this one was very short and didn't make a lot of sense. She basically says, never marry a man or be intrigued by a man whose eyebrows meet.
Yes.
So basically, the bastard son of a priest is walking the enchanted forest, and all of a sudden he sees lights. And what is the light? It's a freaking car. It's a freaking car in like
was this
17th century?
Did this turn into Time Bandits? It was very, very weird.
Was it like was this the village, Charlie?
Car
shows up.
I actually really liked that. It was one of the Shyamalan movies I really liked.
But it was funny.
Yeah.
So, but apparently he wanted hair, so he got a potion from this guy in the car who's observing his skull. He has a chauffeur who's this attractive lady in a all white chauffeur area. She opens the door. The guy gives him a potion. The car leaves. The guy says, "Oh, don't use it all at once." And takes the potion. He rubs it on his chest. The hair starts growing, but also vines start going around his legs.
Happens every time when you take one of those old timey love potions. Yeah, not FDA approved, without a doubt.
And that's it. That was all. I'm like,
that's it. All right. And so now we're getting to the crux of what we saw in the movie poster. So now we get another dude. And so Rosalie is in the woods, not dressed for the weather, but it's snowing. And this guy walks up, also not dressed for the weather. He looks like an aristocrat. He's a huntsman. So he has a shotgun. He has a couple of dead, I think, pheasants. Oh, quick sidebar about Granny's house. She keeps a live ferret on the back of her front door that will just occasionally hiss. It's almost like a doorbell. Because we saw it early in the movie, and then
it is, yes.
And then we see it in the scene
back in the day.
So
it was like this. It was like the Flintstones, Charlie, with like the bird that you pull.
It's a living, yeah, exactly. So this guy, now we get it. He's a creeper. He looks like in his early 20s.
Like he's a huntsman,
but he's a huntsman.
So he's out there with it. Yep, and he looks like a dandy.
Exactly,
he's got very nice outfit,
beautiful flowing hair,
and very charismatic.
Exactly,
talking to Rosalie.
He's hitting on Rosalie again. We think she's 15. This guy looks like he's maybe 30. So it's a little problematic. But then again, remember, A, it's a dream, and B, it's like 17th century England or whatever. And she's like, well, we'll race to your grandmother's house, and if I win, I get a kiss. And she's like, "Oh,
and if I lose, you get my compass." I think that's what he was giving her,
or something. Yeah, she got some sundry item, whatever it is. So
I got to stop you right here, Charlie, because we missed one of the dreams.
Okay.
And I added the dreams below because the one that was interesting. So Rosaline decided to tell her mother a story. So this is a story about starts at a wedding in looks like Paris. Dandy people dressed up to the nines,
so crazy,
wigs, lipstick, and it's about and they're just all like just gluttons. And there's a wedding happening. It's a reception after the wedding, and everyone's very happy. And all of a sudden, this woman walks in, looks a little wild, and essentially, she was left behind by the groom, knocked up and forgotten about. But this woman ends up coming to the reception, basically like you hear like the record scratch when he shows up and the band stops playing. And then she basically says, "Oh, you were done with me." And oh my goodness. And you're not as you're even the wolves are kinder than you. She looks in the mirror
and breaks in the cracks. And then she sees this visage. All of these people start wolfing out. You see guys with their shoes, the paws come through, and you see a wolf face of a woman, but she's still wearing her like Marie Antoinette wig. And at the end of it, everybody is just, and again, they're just regular ass wolves. It's not some dude in a costume. It's not an animatronic.
Sometimes wolves, sometimes just dogs.
Yeah.
I mean, quite literally, there was probably a German Shepherd in there. There was probably
it just reminds you of the Duff Beer Company. More dogs, and they're just swimming around.
Yes.
So yeah, and that's the dream. And again, what relevance does it have to the story? Nobody knows.
More wolves.
More wolves.
More wolves.
So anyway, all right. So back to the dandy huntsman. He arrives at Granny's house, and they start chatting, and she pretty quickly figures out that he is a werewolf. Again, yellow eyes. I don't know if I don't think he had them the whole time, but he definitely had them when he was there.
No, they changed. They were blue, and then they turned to like a yellowish.
Yeah. So this is where they start having an argument, and then he smacks her.
Oh God!
And her head is porcelain. She shatters. Yeah, there's a lot of single blow head hits in this movie where you're going to chop somebody and their head comes clean off. No mess, no trouble.
The fire, but it was like porcelain with hair, and it just ends up in the fire burning.
Right, and then and that's it. There's no trace of her body after that. It's just that ends up in the fireplace, which ends up being an issue when Rosalie does arrive a little bit time later. Ferret at the door hisses. She walks in, and they start having a chat, and she starts to figure out what the deal with him is. And
we get the famous lines from Little Red Riding Hood. Right. What big eyes you have, the better to see you.
What big arms, better to hug you, which again, very, very problematic, very pedophile, just did not care for that part of it.
And then he does get the kiss, and when she does kiss him, she basically, his tooth makes her bleed, and he goes, "Oh, what sharp teeth you have." And of course, the better to eat you with.
Oh my goodness!
So that turns into
now it's wolf out time.
Tussle.
Yes.
Yep. With a shotgun.
Right.
Yes.
She shoots at him. I think she misses both times.
She hits. Well, she hits.
Oh
his shoulder.
yeah. That's right. So he does have a hit.
And this is where we get the crazy wolf scene, which is taken directly from the cover of the movie, where he's transforming, and the wolves and his big tongue comes out, which is crazy.
The big tongue thing is, and he did it with Gran as well. So he does it twice, but he does a big tongue thing. And then, you're right. It comes directly from the movie poster where the big, he's rathering around and he takes his shirt off. And again, he very much looks like, peeled right out of an 80s music video. Just,
I'm going to do a visual right now.
Okay.
Hold on a second.
All right. Hold on. Oops. This is great radio, folks.
Okay. Assume this is a wolf head.
Okay.
And this is
right. He's gonna
out of his mouth. The wolf is like coming out of his mouth.
You have to see it to believe.
Turtle,
and
it's not a wolf.
And so he's a flesh bag, because in the flesh, and you see his back. It's like it's like from The Substance, the Demi Moore movie. She just it just comes out of her back, and then when he comes out, he's just a wolf. Again, it's just a wolf. It's not a dude in a suit. It's not like Benicio del Toro's Wolfman. It's just a wolf, and it's not aggressive. It's acting like a dog. It wants pets. It wants to get licked. It wants to lick you, give you lerps, which is what we always say about Albus. When you get kisses, it's lerps. So he's giving her lerps. She's getting happy. And then we cut away.
We get the final story.
Yes.
Because she tells the wolf a story about a young she-wolf who comes out of the
town well. Crawls up out of the well, which is apparently a direct portal to hell. She is
shot.
She is dirty and naked, and so we get some of our rare nudity in this movie. But whatever. It wasn't even great nudity because she was covered in filth.
Well, and she had long hair. You couldn't see it. But she gets shot, so she goes to the priest. The priest helps her. She recovers a little bit and then goes back down into the well. So that was kind of like basically
not much going on there.
She's not fit to stay in the town, and she returns. So
exactly
that is the final story. And then we cut the final story of Rosaline.
Yeah, we cut back to our hunting party. Who's been out looking for her. So it's all of our other characters except for the mom. I think she stays home. And they get to Gran's house, and they get to Gran's house, and a wolf jumps through the window and runs off. And they open the door and I love this. They open the door, there's another wolf sitting there, and they're like, what the hell? And she's wearing Rosalie's cross necklace. So I'm like, say to April, I said,
I missed that part too.
I said,
I said,
wow. So she transformed into a wolf and then somehow put the necklace back on.
Correct.
That's amazing.
Well, every wolf transformation in this movie is a little bit different,
right?
Because nobody tore off their flesh again,
right?
Nobody just going through their shoes. It was all over the place in this movie.
Oh my god!
Yeah, and then they realize, it's Rosaline. She goes away.
Yeah, and then that
ends up with the wolves,
and the dream is over. And then our main character, we think it's over, but she's still dreaming because as she's continuing to dream, it's nothing but wolves. They're running.
Well, she wakes up, right? Well, no. And then she wakes up,
but
from the dream.
How
right?
can she? Because then it's all wolves. They're running in front of the house. They run into the door, but the house again, it looks like that Meatloaf video where there's bats flying around and leaves blowing. They run up.
I think this was the end where it was real, Charlie. I think this was real.
Okay.
And because dogs were going through pictures, like literally from the back of a picture.
Oh, you're right. The one jumped through like a portrait, but there was like really bright light behind it. And they're running up the stairs, and so they're running up. It's
going through her window.
Well, yeah, that's just the thing is that the house looked like it had been abandoned, so I still feel like it was the dream. But at any rate, they run all the way up the stairs, and they're running down the hallway to her door. And as she's kind of waking up, a wolf, and again, she's on like the 48th floor of this house. A wolf jumps through the window. How did it get up there? And as it shatters, glass is flying everywhere. It's destroying all of her weird toys and different stuff. And then the movie's over.
Yes. I like this line, Charlie. It says, Rosaline wakes with a scream as one leaps in through the window and sends her toys crashing to the floor, symbolizing the end of her childhood innocence.
I have to say, here's my golden hot takeaway of this film. I have never in my memory watched a film where I spent more time with my mouth hanging open or my head in my hands. Yes. Because a serious case of what the F. Oh my God.
I did that several times. Like when the head getting knocked off, then the dolls, like the creepy dolls at the beginning where the teddy bear tried to hug her.
April was in and out, like looking at her phone, and she was like, I really can't watch this. You know what I mean? A lot of times I made that exact noise. I was like, what is, okay. What was going on with any of this?
The car driving through, like the 1920s car driving through 1700 England, selling, and it was Terrence Stamp who is the devil. I was like, I recognized him.
It was General Zod. Yeah, exactly.
Uncredited role.
That's why, because he
read the script and I got to be in this movie.
You know, because this is an old timey movie. They had all of the names, all this like long credit scenes, so all the names. So you're like, oh, David Warner's in this. Oh, Angela Lansbury's in this. Those are the two names I knew. But yeah, and then, like you said, the huntsman looked very familiar, but he's not anybody that I would know. Micah Bergese, very handsome dude, long flowing hair, kind of looked like I said, an Italian rock star or something from the 80s. I have never watched anything. I wouldn't even call it bad. It's just incomprehensible. There's nothing about it. And again, it can all be chalked off to it's a dream sequence. It's a dream. She was dreaming. And again, even you thought the end of it was the end of the dream, but there were things happening like a wolf jumping through a 5th-story window that could have not been a dream.
Well, you know, Charlie, all wolves are great climbers. They can spelunk. They chase all those snakes that are in the tree. Oh my God. That's how they get up there. Yes. Right. He probably swung from a snake.
Like George of the Jungle?
Into the window.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yes.
So in final analysis, if I was to tackle this as we often do when we talk about movies with the rating, I can't even give this a rating. We don't even have to give this rating, Charlie. We just say, does the cover hold up to the movie? Yes or no? Because it's a cover story. Okay. This is kind of, and
again, think the cover didn't lie. Did the cover lie?
I'll give it a percentage. This is like about a 75% of that, because the 25% that's lacking is the girl whose face is somebody who's not in the movie. Other than
True,
that,
that's a lie.
they did take the final wolf transformation, which is the most it's the most expeditious one, because the one earlier in the movie where the guy's tearing his skin
You can't
off,
show that on a cover.
you can't. Yeah, but it's just that was, and it went on for way too long. This was, and again, this guy did a lot of like, like it was very like 80s rock music video. He was William Shatnering that shit. But that's very well represented here. The snow on the ground represents the movie, the trees and her carrying the picnic basket. So 3 out of 4.
Can you judge a movie by its cover?
3 out of 4, yes.
Okay. I will say 100% yes, because what we got was all in this movie. Yes, it wasn't the girl, but we did get all these things.
Yep.
It was exactly right. It was the desire, the fantasy, the nightmare. In the dead of the night, the beast is unleashed. It's all there, Charlie. This... You know what? I can judge a movie by its cover.
Right.
This one succeeds.
But again, the most incomprehensible thing I can remember seeing in the entirety of my life of watching movies since I was 4 years old. I don't get it.
I did have one question when he was like ripping off his flesh.
Oh yeah, in the dream,
just piece of flesh all over the ground now.
Well, you think there'd just be blood everywhere because he's tearing his skin off, right?
Nothing spurting. Yeah, it's just like here's all my. Yeah,
and again, those poor kids were still in the car. I noticed when she was going to run off, when he started to do that, she had 2 of the kids. I'm like, well, fuck the third kid. I guess he's just going to sit there eating a potato,
Well, and then she's just like sitting there. I'm like, what's that going to do?
Yeah,
leave.
Yeah, I was going to say, does this place have a back door? No, yeah, it's in the back. Jump out a window or something. And he wasn't like lunging towards her. And even after he transformed, the wolf was just sitting there.
It's the best part though is when the husband comes in, cuts off his head. When she said, "Oh, it looks like him," just when I married her, he slaps her. I'm like, look what she just went through.
She's like, "You bitch!" Like Ron Burgundy.
Exactly. Oh, you want to marry him now?
Yeah, you want to hear it. Marry with his head, IV wed, IV head.
So much. Why don't you get married again?
Again, yeah, exactly. Well, their marriage wasn't legal.
Oh, okay.
Oh my God. All right.
We'll do this. We'll do this again.
Yeah.
We've got unlimited numbers. We're going to try to movies from 1985, hopefully.
Yeah.
But if we fall off, but if anybody has any covers that are like,
please,
man, this is the cover of a movie.
Yeah.
I saw, like, I want to see it. Maybe it's one that we all hold, and we can definitely take a shot.
That would be amazing. And the way to do that, Todd, is what? How would people reach out to SFU to share a crazy cover? How would they do that?
Yeah, absolutely. You can find me at Todd Oxtra at Secret Friends Unite on Blue Sky, where you can DM us. You can just tag us, share something fun about the show you want to do. That's probably the easiest way to get us information. We're also on Threads and on the Instagram at Toxtra at Secret Friends Unite. I'm trying to do something every day on our Secret Friends Unite accounts, like just like a weird cover or something like that. That's a little bit more fun and representative of the things we talk about.
Word, very good. And again, don't forget about, obviously, as Todd had probably said, the Secret Friends Unite at gmail.com. If you want to send us an image, write us a letter, let us know what you're thinking about the show. That'd be great. But you can find me on the big three, the Blue Sky, the Threads, and the Instagram. I am at the C3, TheCeeThree. Spend most of the rest of my time hanging around at our Secret Friends Unite Discord, as Todd had mentioned, and a Star Trek Discord that I created called the United Trekkers of Michigan. Don't have to be from Michigan to join in, but you do have to love Star Trek, because that's what we're all about. And with that, we will bid you a fair adieu. Thank you, friends, as always, for joining us. I'm going to tell you that sharing is caring, and to keep on trucking.
Be the hero, not the villain.
In the truck.
Oh, Granny, tell me a story.
This podcast is part of the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and podcast services around the galaxy, as well as video on our YouTube channel. You can support Secret Friends Unite by becoming a Patreon member, get bonus programs and more over at patreon.com/secretfriendsunite. Join our Discord community for even more discussions on all things geek. For all the latest updates on Secret Friends Unite, make sure to follow us on Threads at secret.friends.unite and visit secretfriendsunite.com. Find our merchandise at TeePublic and Redbubble. Thanks for listening, and may the Force live long and prosper.